Hey guys, today I wanted to talk to you guys about playing brand new RPGs and my experience playing through brand new RPGs. Why do brand new RPGs matter? What's different about playing a retro game versus a brand new game? Well, I'll tell you that the difference is kind of like when you go to a movie theater and you are in a crowd experiencing a movie for the first time. You get to hear the other audience members clapping and cheering and otherwise ruining the movie, but you get that same kind of built-up excitement that you experience in a crowd setting. Well, I feel like you get that same sort of setting in RPGs as well, when you're playing and being able to go home and talk to your friends about it, and going to school and talking about it with your friends there, and they're all playing the same game. It's a pretty great experience that I think enhances the overall experience. Being able to hear about your friends as they make their progress through the game and being able to talk about their stories that they got on their RPG adventure. And I think in the end, that's sort of the same reason that I like to talk about RPGs and my experiences with RPGs and reviews and in these discussion videos. I like to be able to share my experiences with you guys. If you're playing a lot of retro, I understand, but I recommend playing some of the newer games just to get that feel every once in a while. So the first game that I remember actually standing in line waiting to pick up on launch day was probably Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, but that's not really an RPG. So instead, let's talk about my first brand new RPG, which I actually did not get on launch date. I didn't actually get into RPGs until my adolescence, and when I did by playing a lot of used copies of Super Nintendo RPGs on my used Super Nintendo, and eventually I got a used PlayStation where I could play used PlayStation games. So I had played games like Final Fantasy 2 and 3, aka 4 and 6, and Final Fantasy 9. And that's what I did for the longest time until about high school. My parents got me a brand new console, a PlayStation 2 from my family for Christmas. And the PlayStation 2 was amazing. It was a DVD player that I could hook up to my little 13-inch television, plug it into the RF input on the back of the TV. The image quality was terrible, and I loved it. And that's what you got back in the day, unless you wanted to spend a lot of extra money on like S-Video TVs and S-Video cables, which I eventually did, but at the time just the little 13-inch Sony is all I needed. I didn't actually get any RPGs for it at first. I rented a game. I rented Dark Cloud, the original Dark Cloud. I went out to Hastings and I rented Dark Cloud and I brought it home and I plugged it into my system and I played it, and I had a little PlayStation memory card, but not a PlayStation 2 memory card, and when I tried to save, it wouldn't let me. I was still new to having a PlayStation 2 that the card fit in. I figured it would probably work. In hindsight, I was a dumb kid. What can you do? Which made things kind of difficult for making progress in the game, which is kind of important if you're going to be playing an RPG. I ended up playing just a bunch of PlayStation RPGs on my PlayStation 2 for the longest time, until about 2002-ish, when a friend told me about Final Fantasy X. I was really excited to hear about a PlayStation 2 version of a Final Fantasy game. My mind couldn't even fathom what that might be. There was a review of it in Electronic Gaming Monthly, and it looked super cool. One day, I go over to his house, and he has a copy of the game. And we plug it in. It blew my mind, guys. This game, it was gorgeous. It had voice acting. The voice acting, you could actually hear them talk. You could play as Tidus, who he seemed like a pretty cool guy at the time. I know his character hasn't really aged well over the years, but I thought it was a pretty cool dude. And God, it was just such an incredible experience. Blitzball was such a cool concept at the time, like Zero G, being able to swim underwater and play basically soccer. It was kind of interesting. I think that Blitzball is actually kind of underappreciated. The cutscenes, oh my god, it looked like real life, guys. And just being able to have that experience when I was visiting my friend while that was all it took. I went out and I got a copy of the game as well, and a memory card, and I played through that game. I didn't stop. I just played through it pretty much like day after day after day. I know that there were a few areas that I got stuck for a while, but I kept plugging away and I eventually made it and beat the game. And it felt so awesome. I don't want to talk about the ending here because it's kind of one of those endings that you just gotta experience to feel the gravitas of it. It's really great though. The characters of that game were so good. You know, especially, I mean, Waka. Just look at Waka. He is the epitome of just like the cool, bigger brother kind of character in an RPG. And the game was just so... it was magical, guys. Then the internet happened. And they took that one little scene where Tidus was laughing. To try to cheer Yuna up.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
And they blew it way out of proportion and completely like disregarded the whole fact that like right after that scene there was some actual natural laughter because they were laughing at him being a goof. Anyways, people were bashing the game for no reason apparently at the time, and there's a lot you can criticize the game for in retrospect, but the game voice acting I don't think is really one of those aspects. I feel like Tidus was very well voiced. Yuna, while her character felt a little flat in my opinion, was also really well voice acted, and of course Waka was. Lulu was probably a little bland, but that's because her character was a little dull. So there's not really much you can criticize the game for as far as voice acting goes, but there are some things that, in retrospect, yeah, sure, you could criticize the game for its linearity, but there were also a lot of, you know, console constraints at the time that made that a requirement. And they actually ended up hiding that linearity pretty well, in my opinion. That's kind of besides the point. Final Fantasy X was such a fun experience to play alongside other people, and now you can pretty much go and play Final Fantasy X on every new Sony console that has ever been put out. Everything ever since the PlayStation 2, except for maybe the PlayStation Portable, has a copy of Final Fantasy X 10.2 HD Remake available on it. It's no wonder that this game has ended up on so many consoles though. It's such a fantastic game. They say that you always remember your first, and I think that nothing really compares to that first brand new RPG experience that you get. And that's kind of one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to playing some of the newer RPGs that are coming out this year. I feel like being able to be a part of that feedback loop and getting built up into the hype. It doesn't always lead to the best decision making, but it does usually lead up to some really good memories. So what was your first brand new RPG? I'm guessing that a lot of people probably don't even remember, because I'm guessing a lot of people probably have been playing brand new games their entire life. I feel like kind of an anomaly here, because I only pretty much buy used games. I'm an opportunist when it comes to purchasing games. I buy them when they're cheap and when they're inexpensive at pawn shops and thrift shops. So playing brand new games is something that's kind of unique to me, I guess. It's still kind of strange, but I'm guessing you guys probably play way more new games when they first come out than I do. So do you still feel that way when you get to talk to people about it when you're playing the games and like when they first come out? Do you get to like talk to your friends and be like, hey, this is what I've just did on my journey. Oh, that's so cool. Let's talk about that down in the comments below. And if you're not, if you don't play games more often, if you play games, brand new games every once in a while, let's talk about that down in the comments. What was your first brand new RPG that you remember playing? And how did that make you feel? Did you get to talk to anybody about it? I'd also like to send another special thank you to The Abyss for allowing me to use his music in the video. He's got that new album out, which you should definitely check out in the video description. So until then guys, take care, and I'll see you guys next time.